Okay, I'm back. So we were trying to go from €1 to €900, which is an easy transition, so we don't need two steps. So just multiply by 900. So then you apply that on the other side. So 0.82 multiplied by 900 is, get rid of the question mark because I know what it is, it's 738 pounds sterling. And there's your answer. Okay, and the last one. So question 6. Okay. Ali returns from the USA and has $1,100. A bank buys dollars at a rate of, so €1 is 138. Okay. And what is it she's converting? Oh, $1,100. How much will she get in euro? Okay. So I've written the exchange rate. And it was $1,100 that she has. So again, match up your dollars with your dollars. And then my euro is what I'm trying to find. So I match up my euro with my euro. Okay. Going from this one to this one is not an easy transition, but that's fine. We know how to do that. We just turn it into a double transition. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go from 138 to 1. So we divide by 1.38. And then that sum makes sense because 138 divided by 138 equals 1. Okay. Then we need to go from 1 to 1,100. So we do that by multiplying by 1,100. And again, that makes sense because 1 multiplied by 1,100 equals 1,100. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, so now we apply, those two steps to the far side. So we're going to take 1 and we're going to divide it by 1.38 and then we're going to multiply it by 1,100. So 1 divided by 1.38 multiplied by 1,100. So I am getting, I'm just going to do a little arrow. Okay, so what my calculator says is 797.1014493. Okay, just go back to the question. It just says how much will he get in euro. Okay, so you assume then it's just to the nearest cent, as in this is money. So money always has 2 decimal places. So there is your 2 decimal places. Hang on. There it is. Right. So we look at the number after the decimal places. This number here, which is a 1. That 1 is not going to be big enough to have any effect on the previous number. So it's just 797.10. And I think that is the answer. Okay, so for his 1,100, Ali, for her $1,100, she is going to get €797.10. All right, so they're the 3 homework questions. Let me know if there's any issues with them, and we will keep going. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, and this is actually the last thing in the ordinary level book. So hopefully you know yourselves at this stage, once we go into the higher level book, you're kind of just like tidying up loose ends. So we tend to get through the higher level chapters a lot quicker, for the most part, than the ordinary level chapters. because the ordinary level chapters kind of contains the bulk of the information, and then the higher level chapters just contain the add-ons. And for this chapter, I could be wrong. I think there's only one add-on where in profit and loss you have to do margin as well as markup. I think everything else is just like in all of it, the questions are just a bit harder. So with the income tax, you go over a standard rate cutoff, which makes the questions a little bit more challenging. Like the VAT questions really don't get that much harder. I told you currency exchange, they add in a commission, but again, that's not. So yeah, hopefully we'll get through the second chapter quite quickly because, like I said, the bulk of the work is done once we finish the ordinary level chapter. Okay, so compound interest. Essentially, compound interest is money that is paid. So let me think. If you take out a loan, when you're repaying the loan, no, is it better? No, I think it's better on investments. Okay, so let's say I have a spare 10,000 euro. I don't have a spare 10,000 euro, but let's say I have a spare 10,000 euro. And I decide to give that 10,000 euro to put it into the bank. Okay, so the bank now have my 10,000 euro. Now, everybody knows it's mine, but it's in the bank. Normally when you do investments, you do it for a given amount of time. So you might sign up for like a 3-year investment. So you can't touch that 10,000 euro for 3 years. And what happens then is the bank have use of that money. So they can use it to give someone else a loan or, things like that. So the way the compound interest works then is the bank have to pay me money to use my money, I suppose. So they have the use of my 10,000 euro and they have to pay me money for that. So you'll agree an interest rate, okay? So let's say I put in, my 10,000 euro and the bank agreed to pay me 2% per year. Okay? So 2% of 10,000 euro is 200 euro. Okay? Now, the way compound interest works is that you don't get 200 euro every year. It compounds, okay? So in the first year, I give them my 10,000 euro and they pay me 200 euro, right? That's what happens in the first year. But then in the second year, I still get my 2%, right? But this time, that 2% is of 10,200 euro. So now my 2% is a bit bigger. My 2% is worth 204 euro. And then if you take that into your third year, now you're getting 2% of 10,404 euro. So that is bigger again. It's now 208.08. Okay? That's the idea of compound interest. Okay? It compounds, as in it builds and builds and builds and builds. Okay? So the longer you can leave it there, your percentage, so even though you've agreed this 2% compound interest, your percentage is on an increasing figure every time. So that means that every year your 2% is worth a little bit more. And then at the end of the 10 years, they'll pay you whatever your 10,000 euro has turned into. Okay, so that's the idea of compound interest. It works the same when you take out a loan, except you're the one paying the interest because the bank have given you their money to have use of. So like when you buy a house, most people don't have the money to buy a house, so they go to the bank and they ask the bank to lend them money so that they can buy their house, and then they pay that money back. But if you borrow €200,000 to buy a house, you don't pay back €200,000. You pay back €200,000 plus 2% compound interest. And that compound interest is compounded over normally 30, 35 years. So the bank get a lot more back than what they actually lend you. And that's why they do it. You know, long-term loans like mortgages, they're worth a lot of money to the bank. Because as you can see here, your percentage, you're getting this little bit every single year. And it's obviously on a very big number, so it's not on €10,000, it's on €200,000, or, you know, especially in Dublin, €500,000, you know, those numbers are quite large, and you have to pay that interest every year for as long as you have the mortgage. Okay, it's a little bit easier to understand when you talk from the investment side, but it works the exact same in the loan. It's just that you're the one losing out, you're the one paying the interest. Okay, you get use of the money, but you have to pay for it. Okay, so how do you do the actual? So that's what compound interest is, okay? And how do you do the actual calculations? There's a formula. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Let me just go into your page. So I have the formula and tables book for maths. Coordinate, area, indices, patterns. Oh, there, financial maths, okay? So I think it must be called financial maths in the contents. I hope it is. Yeah, it is. See, financial maths, page 30. So I'm going into financial maths, which is on page 30. And if you look at the very top one there, it says compound interest, and it has this. Okay, so I'm just going to I'm going to take a bit of a chunk here. Right. Okay. So I've gone into my table book, and I've got my formula. Okay, so this is the formula for calculating compound interest. It only works if the interest doesn't change. I mean, that kind of has to be obvious. Like, if you look at the formula, they kind of tell you what everything is. So they tell you here that F is the final value. So this one here is the final value. They tell you that P is the principal, so that's that there. And the principal is just financial speak for the money borrowed or invested. Okay, so it's kind of like the money you start with. So like I said, I went into a bank and I had €10,000. That would be my principal. Or I went into a bank and I needed €200,000 to buy a house. That would be the principal. Okay, so the principal is kind of the money that you start with. And then the final value would be, in my investment example, it would be after I did my 10 years, how much would the bank owe me with all of my compound interest? And in the loan example, it would be how much do you ultimately pay back to the bank? So like I said, you borrow that €200,000, but you pay back a lot more than that because you have to pay interest on it over a really, really long time. And the next thing there, is just a 1. So that's just always a 1. Okay. The next one over, the I, okay, it says it up here. So I is the annual rate of interest. But what's really important is that it has to be expressed as a decimal. Okay, so most of the time interest is written as like 2%. So if you had a question where you had 2% interest, I would be 0.02. Okay, we put it in as a decimal. You can use a fraction as well if you want, but normally stick with decimals. All right. And then the last one, it's really small, but it's there. Okay, and it's a T. Okay, and you can see here, T is the time in years. Okay, so like you saw me snip that out of the formula and tables book, that is there for you. It tells you that it's compound interest. You have all these letters, but literally on the page it explains what each letter stands for. Okay? So let's look at the question. Sean borrows €100 for 3 years at an interest rate of 2% compounded annually. How much will he pay back including interest? Okay? So how much will he pay back including interest? We're looking, that's F. That's the final value. So we don't know F, we need to figure it out. Equals. Next, so I'm following this up here. I've done F, I've done equals. Now I'm moving on to P. Okay, I'm just working through this formula. So P is the principal, which is the money invested or the money borrowed. In this case, Sean borrows €100. So P is €100. Next, I have a bracket, I have a 1, and I have a plus. Copying the formula. Next is the interests, the I. So the interest in this question is 2%, but you can't put that in as a percentage. You need to put it in as a decimal. So 0.02. Then close the bracket, and then to the power of the time in years. So in bold, it says 3 years, so we're going to put a 3 up here. And then you can literally type that straight into your calculator, making sure you use the brackets and you use the powers and all that type of thing. And if you type it in, 100 bracket 1 plus 0.02 raised to the power of 3, I get 106.1208. That's money, so you only want 2 decimal places. The 0 is not going to have any impact. It's too small. So it's 106.12. Okay, so if Sean borrows €100 for 3 years and his interest rate is 2%, he will have to pay back €106.12. So he has to pay back his €100 that he borrowed. I'll actually just write this. He has to pay back the €100 borrowed and he has to pay back €6.12 in interest. Okay? And that's Sean paying for the use of the money for the 3 years. Okay? Okay, let's have a look at this one. Jerome wins €10,000 in his local GAA club lotto. He invests the money at a rate of 3%. Find the value of the investment at the end of the first year. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's loans or investments, the formula is the same. Okay? Right, so we want to know the value of the money at the end of the first year, so that's the final value of the money. Okay, so we don't know F. P is the money he invests, which is €10,000, because that's what he won in the lotto. 1 stays as 1, plus is fine. The I is here, but it needs to go as a decimal, so 0.03. And then the number of years, it's just after the first year. So that's just going to be to the power of 1. So again, type it into your calculator. And we get, at the end of the first year, his money is worth €10,300. Okay. At the start of the second year, Jerome withdraws €1,450. Find the value of the investment at the end of the second year if his interest rate is offered in the second, if the interest rate offered in the second year is 3.5%. Okay, so at the start of the second year, he has 10,000 €300. Okay. He withdraws or takes out €1,450. So that means his total is going to come down to €8,850. So that's how much money is left in the bank. He's going to invest that money for another year. Okay, so I can get my I can get my formula again. Okay, so we want to know how much this investment is going to be worth at the end of the year. The principal now is €8,850 because that's all that's left after he took out his 1,450. The one is still 1. The interest rate has changed to 3.5%. So that means as a decimal it's 0.035 is what my interest rate is going to be. And then what we're talking about here is from the start of the second year to the end of the second year. So it's just going to be 1 year worth of interest. That's all that we're going to be including. Okay? So 8850 bracket 1 plus 0.035 bracket to the power of 1, which you don't really need to do. And you get a final value in this investment of €9,159.75. Okay, so that's how you do it. Compound interest. Just using the formula. So for homework for Wednesday, right, let's go with skinny. Okay, right, so we'll do 6, we'll do 7, and that one's a bit tricky. And we'll do 9. Okay, 6, 7, and 9, and that's due for Wednesday. All right, let me know if there's any issues.